and put in jail.
It infuriated me, and I was devastated. I was blown away. I just could not believe that they could even think. I mean, Ryan was my world, you know? Ryan was so beautiful. He was perfect.
She took him from me and said that it's over with. He's gone.
A young mother sits alone in a cold jail cell. Her hands tremble as she presses the phone against her ear. On the other line, her husband's voice cracks. He's gone, Patty. Ryan. He's gone. She doesn't scream. She can't. The words don't make sense. Her 3-month-old baby boy, her world, is dead. And the entire state of Missouri believes she killed him. They say she poisoned him, fed him antifreeze, watched him suffer. But here's what nobody knew. Patricia Stallings didn't kill her son. In fact, the real killer wasn't a person at all. It was something invisible, something so rare that doctors missed it completely. And by the time the truth came out, Patricia had already been convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. This is the story of a medical mistake that destroyed a family. A mother accused, a system that failed, and a diagnosis that came too late. This is a story about how easily the truth can be buried. How science, the very thing we trust to reveal reality, can become the weapon that destroys innocent lives. But it starts with a baby who couldn't breathe. Let's rewind. 1986, Jefferson County, Missouri. It's a small, quiet community. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone. Where life moves at a slower pace. Where dreams are simple. Patricia, everyone called her Patty, was 21 years old. She worked as a convenience store clerk. Her shifts were long. Her pay was modest. But she had a warm smile and a kind heart. She wasn't chasing fame or fortune. She wasn't trying to change the world. She just wanted simple happiness. And then one day, a man walked into her store. David Stallings. Tall, quiet, hardworking. He bought coffee, made small talk, and then he left. But the next day, he came back. And the day after that. And the day after that. It wasn't about the coffee. It wasn't about the lottery tickets or the gas or the snacks. It was about her. Patty noticed. How could she not? They started talking, really talking, about their lives, their families, their hopes for the future. And slowly, something beautiful began to bloom. They started dating in 1986. 2 years later, in a small ceremony surrounded by friends and family, they were married. Patty wore a simple white dress. David wore a suit that was slightly too big. They exchanged vows. They promised forever, and for a while, forever seemed possible. The following year, in April of 1989, their world changed completely. Patty gave birth to their first child, a son. They named him Ryan. Ryan David Stallings. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Tiny fingers that wrapped around David's thumb. Big, curious eyes that seemed to take in everything. Patty cried when she first held him. Not from pain, from overwhelming, all-consuming love. David couldn't stop smiling. He'd never felt anything like this before. They moved into a small white house overlooking Lake Wanoga. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, a small yard, but it was theirs. Life felt complete. Patty would wake up early to feed Ryan. She'd rock him back to sleep, humming softly. David would come home from work and scoop his son into his arms, marveling at how fast he was growing. For the first 3 months of Ryan's life, everything was perfect. The house was filled with laughter, with baby giggles, with the sound of life beginning. But then, Ryan started getting sick. At first, it was subtle. He seemed fussier than usual. He wasn't eating as much. Patty thought maybe it was colic. Maybe he was teething early. But then it got worse. Much worse. July 7th, 1989. It's a warm summer evening. The sun is setting over Lake Wanoga, casting golden light through the windows of the Stallings home. Patty is in the nursery, trying to soothe Ryan. He's been crying for hours. Not the normal baby cry. Something different. Something that makes her stomach twist with worry. She picks him up, cradles him against her chest. And then she notices his breathing. It's labored, raspy, like he's struggling to pull air into his tiny lungs. "David," she calls out, her voice tight with panic. David rushes in, takes one look at his son, and his face goes pale. "Something's wrong," Patty says, her voice breaking. "Something's really wrong." Ryan's little chest heaves with effort. His skin is pale, clammy, and then he starts vomiting. Violently, uncontrollably. Patty screams. David grabs his keys. "We're going to the hospital. Now." They wrap Ryan in a blanket and rush to the car. Patty sits in the back, holding her son, whispering to him. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. Mommy's here. You're going to be okay." But she doesn't know if she believes it. The drive to Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital in St. Louis feels like it takes forever. Every minute feels like an hour. Every traffic light feels like a cruel joke. Patty keeps checking Ryan's breathing, keeps making sure his chest is still rising and falling. "Hurry," she whispers to David. "Please hurry." When they finally arrive at the emergency room, Patty bursts through the doors with Ryan in her arms. "Help, please, someone help my baby." A nurse takes one look at Ryan and immediately calls for a doctor. Within seconds, Ryan is whisked away. Patty tries to follow, but a nurse gently stops her. "We need to work on him. Please, wait here." Patty's legs feel like they're going to give out. David catches her, holds her. "He's going to be okay," he says. But his voice is shaking. Minutes pass. Then an hour. Finally, a doctor emerges. "Your son is in the pediatric intensive care unit. He's stable for now, but his condition is serious. We're running tests to figure out what's wrong. Can we see him?" Patty asks desperately. The doctor nods. "Follow me." When Patty walks into the PICU, her heart shatters. Ryan, her beautiful baby boy, is hooked up to machines. Tubes run from his tiny body. A respirator breathes for him. Monitors beep rhythmically. He looks so small, so fragile, so helpless. Patty collapses into a chair beside his bed, reaching for the wires to hold his little hand. "I'm here, baby," she whispers. "Mommy's here." David stands behind her, his hand on her shoulder, staring at his son in disbelief. "How did this happen? He was fine yesterday. They were playing. He was smiling. And now," a nurse approaches them gently. "We don't know how long he'll need to be here. The doctors are doing everything they can. There's a family waiting room down the hall if you need to rest." But Patty doesn't move. She won't leave Ryan's side. David manages to rent a hospital room nearby. Just a small space with a bed and a chair. But they don't care. They need to be close. For 3 agonizing days, they wait. Doctors come and go. Tests are ordered. Blood is drawn. Urine samples are collected. Patty barely sleeps, barely eats. She just sits by Ryan's bed, holding his hand, praying. And then, on the 3rd day, a doctor walks in. His expression is serious. Too serious. "Mr. and Mrs. Stallings, we need to talk." Patty and David follow the doctor into a small conference room. The fluorescent lights are harsh. The walls are sterile white. The doctor sits down across from them. He folds his hands on the table. "We've received the results of Ryan's tests." Patty leans forward. "What is it? What's wrong with him?" The doctor pauses, chooses his words carefully. "Your son has been poisoned." The word hangs in the air like a bomb that just went off. "Poison." Patty's heart stops. "What? No. That's impossible. How?" The doctor continues, his voice measured but firm. "We ran a gas chromatography analysis on his blood and urine. The results show extremely high levels of ethylene, glycol, and acetone. David's brow furrows. Ethylene. What? Ethylene glycol. It's the main ingredient in antifreeze. Acetone is commonly found in nail polish remover. Patty feels like she's going to be sick. Those are toxic chemicals, the doctor says. They should never be present in such high concentrations in a baby's system. Someone gave these substances to your son. Patty's hands start shaking. No, that's not possible. We would never. I would never. The doctor's expression doesn't change. We're required by law to report this to the authorities. The Missouri Division of Family Services and the Sheriff's Department have been contacted. David stands up, his voice rising. Wait, you think we did this? You think we poisoned our own son? We don't make accusations, Mr. Stallings. We simply report the findings. The authorities will investigate. Patty can't breathe. This can't be happening. This has to be a nightmare. But it's not. Within hours, 2 detectives arrive at the hospital. They're polite, professional, but there's suspicion in their eyes. Patty and David are separated, questioned in different rooms. A detective sits across from Patty. He has a notepad, a pen. Mrs. Stallings, I need to ask you some questions. Patty nods, tears streaming down her face. Do you have nail polish remover in your home? Yes, she whispers. I use it on my fingernails sometimes. The detective writes something down. Have you been experiencing any stress at home? Any arguments with your husband? No, we're happy. We love each other. We love Ryan. Has anyone else had access to your son? Babysitters? Family members? No, it's just been us. In the other room, David is being asked similar questions. Do you have antifreeze in your home, Mr. Stallings? David nods. Yes, I rebuilt my car's radiator a few weeks ago. There's a partial gallon left in the basement. The detectives exchange glances. They have their answer, or at least, they think they do. Over the next several days, Ryan's condition stabilizes. The doctors manage to flush the toxins from his system. Slowly, he begins to improve. After 12 days in the hospital, Ryan is released, but not to his parents. On the day Ryan is supposed to come home, a social worker approaches Patty and David in the hospital lobby. I'm sorry, she says, but we're placing Ryan in protective custody. Patty's world collapses. What? No, you can't do this. He's our son. This is policy, Mrs. Stallings. When there's a suspected poisoning, we have to remove the child from the home until the investigation is complete. Patty screams. She tries to push past the social worker, but David holds her back. Please, David begs. We didn't do anything. You have to believe us. But the decision has been made. Ryan is taken away in a social worker's arms. He's crying, reaching for his mother. Patty collapses to the floor, sobbing. Her baby is gone. The weeks that follow are torture. Ryan is placed with a foster family. Patty and David are allowed to visit him once a week, every Thursday, for 1 hour, supervised. Every visit feels like both a blessing and a curse. Patty gets to hold her son, gets to see his smile, but she knows that when the hour is up, she'll have to give him back. David drives them to the foster home every Thursday. Neither of them speaks much during the drive. What is there to say? The first visit is awkward. The social worker sits in the corner, watching, taking notes. Patty tries to act normal. She plays with Ryan, changes his diaper, feeds him a bottle, but nothing about this is normal. He's getting so big, she whispers to David, tears in her eyes. David nods, his jaw clenched. He's trying to stay strong. For Patty, for Ryan, but inside, he's breaking too. Week after week, they make the drive. Week after week, they get 1 hour with their son. The social worker never leaves the room, never stops watching. 5 weeks pass without incident. And then comes the 6th visit, August 31st, 1989. It's a Thursday like any other. Patty and David arrive at the foster home. The social worker lets them in. Ryan is sitting in a playpen, surrounded by toys. When he sees his parents, his face lights up. Patty scoops him into her arms, kissing his forehead over and over. "Hi, baby. Mommy missed you so much." They play. They laugh. For 1 hour, they pretend they're a normal family. At one point, the social worker steps out of the room to take a phone call. "I'll be right back," she says. Just a minute. Patty is alone with Ryan. She notices he's fussy, probably hungry. There's a bottle on the table. The foster mother prepared it earlier. Patty picks it up, tests the temperature on her wrist. It's perfect. She settles into the rocking chair and feeds Ryan the bottle. He drinks eagerly. His little hand wraps around her finger. For those few minutes, everything feels right again. The social worker returns. The visit ends. Patty kisses Ryan goodbye, promising she'll see him next week. But she won't, because 3 days later, Ryan is rushed back to the hospital. Same symptoms: vomiting, lethargy, labored breathing. Only this time, it's worse. The doctors run the same tests. The results come back: even higher levels of ethylene glycol in his blood. Higher than before. The authorities test the bottle Patty used during the visit. Traces of antifreeze. The conclusion seems obvious. Patricia Stallings poisoned her son. Again, on September 3, 1989, police arrive at the Stallings home. Patty and David are just getting out of their car when 2 officers approach. "Patricia Stallings, you're under arrest for assault." Handcuffs click around Patty's wrists. She doesn't resist. She's in shock. "I didn't do this," she whispers. "I didn't do this." But no one is listening. She's taken to jail, booked, fingerprinted, given an orange jumpsuit. And Ryan? He's fighting for his life. Ryan's condition deteriorates rapidly. The ethylene glycol has ravaged his tiny body. His organs are failing. The doctors do everything they can, but it's not enough. David receives a call from the hospital. "You should come. It's time." David knows what that means. He immediately calls the jail, begs to speak to someone in charge. "My son is dying. Please. My wife needs to be there. She needs to say goodbye." The request goes up the chain. Eventually, it reaches the judge overseeing the case. Judge Gary P. Kramer. His response is swift and final. "No, absolutely not. I'm not going to let a baby killer near that child." David is devastated. He tries to argue, tries to explain that Patty is innocent. "This lady did not kill this baby." He shouts into the phone. But it doesn't matter. The decision stands. David drives to the hospital alone. When he arrives, a doctor meets him in the hallway. "We've done everything we can," she says gently. "But his body can't take any more. We need your permission to remove life support." David feels like he's drowning. Can I hold him?" Of course. They take David into Ryan's room. The machines are beeping. The monitors show a heartbeat that's growing weaker by the minute. A nurse carefully disconnects the tubes and places Ryan in David's arms. He's so light, so small. David sits in a chair by the window and cradles his son against his chest. "I'm so sorry, buddy," he whispers, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry Mommy can't be here. She loves you so much." "We both do." He sits there for 3 hours, watching, waiting. Ryan's breathing slows. His heartbeat weakens. Beep, beep, beep. And then, silence. Ryan David Stallings is dead. September 7, 1989, 6:30 p.m., 6 months old. A doctor enters the room. She places a gentle hand on David's shoulder. "He's gone," she says softly. "I'm so sorry." David doesn't move. He just sits there, holding his son's body, sobbing. At 9 p.m., he makes the hardest phone call of his life. The jail patches him through to Patty. She picks up the phone, hope in her voice. "David, is he okay? Is Ryan okay?" David's voice breaks. "He died, Patty. He's gone." Patty's scream echoes through the jail. She begs the guards to let David visit her, to let her see him, to let her grieve. One of the deputies takes pity on her. "He can come," the deputy says quietly. David arrives at the jail an hour later. They're allowed to sit together in a small room. No privacy. Guards watching. Patty collapses into his arms. "I didn't do this," she sobs. "David, I swear to God, I didn't do this." "I know," he whispers, holding her tight. "I know, but knowing doesn't change anything. Ryan is gone, and the state of Missouri believes Patty killed him." 2 days later, Patty's charges are uprated. First-degree murder. She's denied bail, and she's not allowed to attend her son's funeral. David stands alone at the cemetery, watching as Ryan's tiny casket is lowered into the ground. The funeral is small. Family, friends, people who knew Ryan for only 6 months but loved him deeply. David places a single white rose on the casket. "I love you, son," he whispers. "Always." Patty sits in her jail cell, staring at the gray concrete walls, imagining the funeral she's not allowed to attend. She pictures Ryan's casket, the flowers, the tears, and she breaks all over again. But then, a few weeks later, something happens. Something that will change everything. Patty discovers she's pregnant. February 27, 1990. Patricia Stallings gives birth to her second son while locked behind bars. The labor is difficult, painful, and she's alone. No husband holding her hand. No doctor she trusts. Just guards and prison medical staff. When the baby is born, he's 1 month premature. Small, fragile. They name him David Jr. After his father. Patty gets to hold him for exactly 3 minutes. 3 minutes to memorize his face, his tiny nose, his perfect little fingers, and then he's taken away, immediately placed into state custody. Patty screams, fights, but there's nothing she can do. David Jr. is transferred to Madison County Hospital for monitoring because of his premature birth. David Sr. rushes to the hospital. He's desperate to bring his son home, to finally have something good in his life again. But the state says no. David Jr. is placed with a foster family. David Sr. is devastated. He's lost Ryan, lost Patty, and now he's lost his newborn son too. He drives home alone to an empty house, sits in Ryan's old nursery, surrounded by toys that will never be played with again. And he weeps. Meanwhile, David Jr. is being monitored closely. Because he was premature, doctors want to make sure he's developing properly. For the first 2 weeks, everything seems fine. But then, something strange happens. David Jr. starts showing symptoms. He's vomiting. His breathing is labored. He's lethargic and weak. The exact same symptoms Ryan had. The doctors are baffled. David Jr. has been in state custody since birth. He's had 0 contact with his mother, 0 contact with his father. So how could he have been poisoned? It doesn't make sense, unless the doctors run extensive tests, blood work, urine analysis, genetic screenings, and then they find it. David Jr. has a rare genetic disorder, methylmalonic acidemia, MMA. It's a metabolic disorder so rare that most doctors will never encounter a single case in their entire career. MMA prevents the body from properly breaking down certain proteins and fats. This causes a toxic buildup of propionic acid. And here's the critical detail. Propionic acid is almost chemically identical to ethylene glycol. So identical that even advanced medical equipment can mistake one for the other. The realization hits like a freight train. David Jr. wasn't poisoned. He was born with a genetic condition. And if David Jr. has MMA, then maybe Ryan had it too. Maybe Ryan was never poisoned at all. Maybe Patricia Stallings is innocent. When Patty hears the news, she collapses to her knees in her cell. "It's over," she whispers to herself, tears of relief streaming down her face. "It's finally over. They'll have to let me go now." Her lawyer visits her the next day. "This changes everything," he says. "There's no way they can convict you now." Patty feels hope for the first time in months. She's going to be exonerated. She's going to be free. She's going to get David Jr. back. But then March 1991 arrives, and Patricia Stallings goes on trial for the murder of her son. March 4th, 1991. The courtroom is packed. Reporters fill the gallery. Cameras line the walls. This case has captured national attention. A mother accused of poisoning her baby with antifreeze. It's the kind of story that horrifies and fascinates in equal measure. Patricia Stallings sits at the defense table beside her lawyer, Eric Rathbone. She's pale, thin, exhausted. Nearly 2 years of imprisonment have taken their toll. She wears a simple dress. No makeup. Her hands are folded in her lap. Across the aisle, prosecutor George McElroy shuffles through his notes. He's confident, prepared. The judge enters. Everyone stands. "Please be seated," the judge says. "Let's begin." The prosecution goes first. McElroy approaches the jury box. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a simple case. The evidence is overwhelming. Ryan Stallings died because his mother poisoned him." He pauses for effect. Medical tests confirmed high levels of ethylene glycol, antifreeze, in Ryan's blood. The same substance was found in the bottle Patricia Stallings fed him during a supervised visit. Antifreeze was found in their home. He points at Patty. Patricia Stallings poisoned her son, and then she watched him die. Patty closes her eyes. The words feel like physical blows. Over the next several days, the prosecution calls witnesses. Dr. Robert Lynch, the lead pediatrician, testifies about the test results. "There's no doubt," he says. "The child was poisoned with ethylene glycol." Detectives testify about the antifreeze found in the Stallings basement. The social worker testifies about the supervised visit where Patty was briefly alone with Ryan. The evidence, as presented, seems damning. When it's the defense's turn, Eric Rathbone tries to introduce the possibility of MMA. "Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Stallings may have died from natural causes. His brother, David Jr., has been diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder that produces symptoms identical to poisoning." But the prosecution objects. "Your Honor, there's no evidence that Ryan had this disorder. Every medical test confirmed ethylene glycol poisoning." McElroy addresses the jury with contempt in his voice. "The defense wants you to believe that some mysterious disease killed Ryan Stallings. You might as well speculate that some lil man from Mars came down and shot him full of mysterious bacteria." The jury laughs. Patty's heart sinks. Her lawyer doesn't call character witnesses, doesn't bring forward friends or family to testify about what kind of mother she was. Patty had begged him to. "Please," she'd said, "let people tell them I would never hurt Ryan." But Rathbone dismissed the idea. "It won't matter," he'd said. "The science is against us." After just a few days of testimony, the case goes to the jury. They deliberate for less than 6 hours. When they return, the verdict is read. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Patricia Stallings, guilty of murder in the first degree." The courtroom erupts. Patty doesn't react. She's too numb. Sentencing comes quickly. "Patricia Stallings, you are hereby sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole." Life, without parole, for a crime she didn't commit. Patty is led away in handcuffs. David watches from the gallery, tears streaming down his face. This can be happening, but it is. Patricia Stallings, a mother who loved her son more than anything, is now a convicted murderer. And she's lost everything: her son, her freedom, her future. But across town, two men are watching the news coverage of the trial, and they're convinced a terrible mistake has been made. May 1991. Dr. William Sly is sitting in his living room in St. Louis. He's a biochemist, a professor at St. Louis University, a man who's dedicated his life to understanding the mysteries of human metabolism. He's watching TV, flipping channels, and then he stops. On the screen, an episode of Unsolved Mysteries is airing. The show is covering Patricia Stallings' case. Dr. Sly leans forward, listening intently. They show Ryan's hospital records, the test results, the diagnosis of ethylene glycol poisoning. Something doesn't sit right with him. He reaches for the phone and calls Dr. James Shoemaker, the director of the metabolic screening lab at the university. "Jim, are you watching this?" "Watching what?" "Turn on Unsolved Mysteries now." Dr. Shoemaker turns on his TV, watches the segment. "My God," he says quietly. "You're thinking what I'm thinking?" Dr. Sly asks. "MMA. It has to be." Both doctors are experts in metabolic disorders. They've seen cases of MMA before. They know how easily it can be misdiagnosed. The next morning, Dr. Shoemaker contacts prosecutor George McElroy. "Mr. McElroy, I'm Dr. James Shoemaker. I'm calling about the Patricia Stallings case." "What about it?" "I believe there may have been a misdiagnosis." "What method was used to test for ethylene glycol?" There's a pause. "Gas chromatography." "Why? Can you send me the lab reports?" "All of them." McElroy is skeptical, but he agrees. A few days later, Dr. Shoemaker receives a thick envelope filled with medical documents. He spreads them across his desk and begins to analyze. He studies the gas chromatography reports, the blood work, the urine samples, and then he sees it. The peaks on the chromatography graph. They're similar to ethylene glycol, but not identical. To a careless observer, or someone unfamiliar with MMA, they'd look the same. But they're not. Dr. Shoemaker picks up the phone again. "Bill, I think we've got something." Over the next few weeks, the two doctors work tirelessly. They request samples of Ryan's preserved blood. They send them to 7 different laboratories across the country. They don't tell the labs what they're testing for. They just ask them to identify the compounds. The results come back. 3 out of 7 labs identify ethylene glycol. But there's no ethylene glycol in the samples. Only propionic acid, the same propionic acid produced by MMA. The tests prove it. The original diagnosis was wrong. Dr. Shoemaker then reaches out to one of the world's leading geneticists, Dr. Piero Rinaldo at Yale University. He sends Dr. Rinaldo all the raw data from the original tests. Dr. Rinaldo reviews everything meticulously. His response is scathing. "This is shockingly low-quality analysis. The retention times don't match. This isn't ethylene glycol. It's not even close." He picks up the phone and calls prosecutor George McElroy directly. "Mr. McElroy, you've convicted an innocent woman." McElroy is stunned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Patricia Stallings didn't poison her son. Ryan had MMA. The tests were wrong." McElroy hangs up the phone and stares at the wall. An innocent woman is in prison. He convicted her, and now he has to fix it. July 30th, 1991. Patricia Stallings has been in prison for 4 months. She wakes up every morning in a cell, eats meals in a cafeteria surrounded by criminals, spends her days staring at concrete walls. She's lost weight, lost hope. But then, one afternoon, a guard appears at her cell. "Stallings, come with me." Patty's heart races. "Why? What's happening?" "You're being released." Patty can't process the words. "What? You're going home. House arrest pending a new trial." "Let's go." Patty's legs feel weak. She's led through the prison, given her personal belongings, walks out into the sunlight for the first time in months. David is waiting outside. When she sees him, She runs. He catches her in his arms. They stand there in the parking lot, holding each other, crying. "You're coming home," David whispers. "You're coming home." Over the next few weeks, more evidence comes to light. Experts confirm that Ryan had MMA, that the original tests were flawed, that propionic acid was mistaken for ethylene glycol. Even the supposed antifreeze in the bottle is explained. The bottle had been washed improperly at the lab. Cross-contamination, the crystals found in Ryan's brain, caused by the ethanol drip doctors gave him when they were treating him for suspected poisoning. Every piece of evidence against Patty falls apart. On September 20th, 1991, a press conference is held. Prosecutor George McElroy stands at a podium, looking somber. Today, the state of Missouri is dismissing all pending charges against Patricia Stallings. Based on new evidence, we are satisfied and convinced that Patricia Stallings did not poison her child. He pauses. "I want to personally apologize to the Stallings family for the pain and suffering they've endured." Patty stands beside David, holding his hand. She should feel relieved, vindicated, but mostly, she just feels tired. 2 years of her life, gone. Her son, gone, and nothing will ever bring him back. In the months following her release, Patricia tries to rebuild her life. She's free. The charges are dropped. Her name is cleared. But freedom doesn't erase the trauma. She has nightmares. Wakes up in the middle of the night thinking she's back in that cell. She sees Ryan's face everywhere. In every baby she passes on the street. In every photograph. The grief is suffocating. David tries to be strong. Tries to hold the family together. They're allowed to bring David Jr. home. Finally, he's over a year old now. Walking, babbling, growing despite his condition. MMA is manageable with the right treatment. Strict diet, regular monitoring, medication. Patty throws herself into caring for him. It's the only thing that keeps her going. Every day is a gift. Every smile, every laugh. But the shadow of what happened never fully lifts. In 1993, the Stallings family files a lawsuit against Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital, against St. Louis University Hospital, against SmithKline Beecham Clinical Laboratories, all the institutions that tested Ryan's blood, that misdiagnosed him, that set this nightmare in motion. The case settles out of court. Several $1 million. It's more money than Patty and David have ever seen. But it doesn't bring Ryan back. It doesn't erase the 2 years Patty spent in prison. It doesn't heal the wounds. Money can't fix this. The strain on their marriage becomes too much. They try. They really do. But every time they look at each other, they're reminded of everything they lost. The trauma has changed them both. Eventually, they divorce. It's quiet. Amicable, sad. They both love David Jr. They co-parent as best they can. But the life they once had, the simple happiness they dreamed of, is gone forever. Patty moves to a small apartment. Starts over. She finds solace in Buddhism. The practice helps her find peace. Helps her let go of anger. She meditates, reflects, tries to forgive. Not just the doctors and prosecutors, but herself, for surviving when Ryan didn't, for not being there when he died, for not fighting harder. David Sr. tries to move forward too, but the weight of everything crushes him. He develops health problems. The stress has taken its toll on his body. Years pass. David Jr. grows up. Despite his condition, he's a fighter. A miracle. But MMA is a cruel disease. In 2013, at the age of 23, David Jr. passes away. Complications from his condition. Patty is devastated all over again. She's lost both her sons now, Ryan and DJ. The pain is unbearable, but somehow she keeps going. In 2019, David Sr. dies after a long illness. Patty attends the funeral. says goodbye to the man she once loved with all her heart. The man who stood by her, who believed her, who never gave up. She's alone now. Both her sons gone, her ex-husband gone, but she survived. Against all odds, she survived. Meanwhile, the scientific community has taken notice of her case. Dr. Shoemaker and Dr. Sly published their research in a peer-reviewed journal. Their paper becomes a landmark study. It outlines how MMA can be confused with ethylene glycol poisoning. It changes protocols, changes training, changes how forensic medicine approaches these cases. Medical students study the Stallings case. It becomes a cautionary tale, a reminder that even science can fail, that tests can be wrong, that lives hang in the balance of accuracy and diligence. Today, doctors are trained to recognize MMA, to look for it, to test for it properly. No mother should ever go through what Patricia Stallings went through. But here's the haunting truth that keeps people up at night. If David Jr. had never been born, if Patty hadn't gone pregnant while in jail, if that second baby hadn't shown the same symptoms, Patricia would still be in prison today, serving a life sentence for a crime she didn't commit. Her second son saved her life, but he couldn't save his own. And that's the tragedy within the tragedy, the cruel irony of it all. Ryan died because of a misdiagnosis. David Jr. lived just long enough to prove his mother's innocence. And then he died too. 2 sons, both victims of the same genetic disorder. One misdiagnosed, the other diagnosed too late to save his brother's mother from prison. It's almost too painful to comprehend. So here's what we're left with. Questions that have no answers. What if Ryan had been correctly diagnosed on that first hospital visit in July 1989? What if the doctors had been more careful with their testing? What if they'd considered MMA before jumping to conclusions about poisoning? Ryan might have lived. With proper treatment, many children with MMA can survive, can thrive. He might still be alive today. David Jr. might still be alive today. Patricia and David might still be together. An entire family might have been saved. But they weren't, because of a mistake, a failure of science, a rush to judgment. And that's what haunts this case. Not just what happened, but what could have been prevented. Patricia Stallings lost everything. Her sons, her freedom, her marriage, years of her life. But she never lost her dignity. She never confessed to something she didn't do. She maintained her innocence even when the entire world thought she was a monster. Even when a jury convicted her. Even when a judge sentenced her to die in prison. She held onto the truth. And eventually, the truth came out. But the price was devastating. Today, wherever Patricia is, I hope she's found some measure of peace. I hope she's able to remember Ryan not as the baby who died in a hospital, but as the perfect little boy with curious eyes who made her smile. I hope she's able to remember David Jr. not as the son who saved her from prison, but as the fighter who brought joy into her life. I hope she knows that their deaths weren't in vain, that their story changed medicine, that other families have been spared because of what she endured. Rest in peace, Ryan Stallings. Rest in peace, David Jr. Rest in peace, David Sr. And Patricia, wherever you are, thank you for never giving up on the truth. This case reminds us of something crucial. Justice isn't always just. Science isn't always right. And innocent people can be destroyed by systems designed to protect them. We trust doctors to heal us. We trust labs to give us accurate results. We trust prosecutors to seek the truth. We trust juries to deliver justice. But sometimes, all of those systems fail. And when they do, lives are shattered, families are torn apart, and the innocent suffer. Patricia Stallings is a survivor, but she shouldn't have had to survive this in the first place. If this story shocked you, disturbed you, or made you question everything you thought you knew about justice and medicine, there's a video on your screen right now that I believe was made for you. Click it, watch it, and let me know what you think in the comments. Because sometimes the truth is darker than we ever imagined, and sometimes the only thing standing between an innocent person and a life behind bars is a mistake that no one caught in time. Thank you for watching, and remember, question everything, even the things that seem certain, because certainty can be an illusion, and the truth is often far more complicated than it appears.